Hey guys, it's Raithe with the last of Connor Sherlock's games for now. The design and I believe the program and everything was basically Connor Sherlock, and I think Cameron Kunzelman did the writing, and someone else did the music, or not the music, the voiceover. Emmett something, I forget his name, but anywho, this game is, out of the games that Connor has on his itch.io, is the only one that costs anything, that isn't just pay what you want. And it has a bit more to it than some of his other ones, although it should be a single session game, as the others are. So let's just jump right in. Controls, WSAD to move, mouse to look.
I haven't told this story in a very long time. You'll have to forgive me if I have trouble keeping it straight.
Slenderman, is that you? Emmett's voice is interesting enough. And we are a pill. Yeah, that's all you need for a shadow. Just to know that you have one. Especially if it will play into anything later on. No control for the flashlight though.
Eric had left in the night 6 weeks before. I started awake when he rolled out of bed before dawn, but I drifted back to sleep immediately. When I woke up, I was covered in dew. I looked out the open window to see the sun breaking over the horizon. The automobile was gone, so I showered, got dressed, and caught the bus to work.
I see some light down there, possibly a fire. Appears to be an orange or yellow light. And this game is supposed to be a horror game, so I'm expecting some shit to happen, or at least for it to be a creepy story. So let Emmett, instead of me this time, take you away. I will not speak when he does. It's just a little lantern, a little light, by a path.
He used to tell me about a recurring dream he would have. A figure stood on a hilltop far away. He could see it beckoning for him. "Are you sure it's you they want every time?" I asked once, and he sighed. "It's either me or someone standing directly behind me. Is that better or worse?"
There's almost a strange purple glow over there, and then there's another light over there. Ooh, what is this? Huh. There's always some form of a trail that Connor leaves in his games.
Eric devoted more than 10 pages to a cobbled together story that he referred to as the parable. It was impossible for me to follow his references and sources, but it appeared to be an origin myth for a pan-European coven of witches that had disappeared before anyone even thought about settling KESTLEBROOK.
You know, normally I'd complain about the mouth noises with the mic, but it kind of adds to the creepiness factor. Okay, let's get to that light quickly. There isn't a sprint, which, quite frankly, I think I enjoy. Because I'd rather be at the one fastest speed I have available rather than having to hold down a button all the time for efficiency's sake.
I was sitting at my kitchen table across from an empty chair when the doorbell rang. Surprised, I dropped my coffee cup and it shattered on the floor. I stepped over it quickly, closing the distance between myself and the door. And when I threw it open, I expected Eric to be there. Instead, there was a delivery boy with a letter. I read it to myself. moving my lips to cement it in my memory. It was a short missive. Come to me, I've found it. The return address read KESTLEBROOK. I bought the train ticket that afternoon.
So I might assume that we are in KESTLEBROOK right now. The story that Eric had written about KESTLEBROOK and the witches was not all that it seemed. It was not just a story. Might that be what we can presume?
I shattered the lock of Eric's desk drawer 5 days after he left. I never really cared about what he kept in there, but his absence had driven me to find any remnant I could. I found some of his notebooks. He always scribbled constantly, filling volume after volume without telling me what he's actually working on. Once every few months I would ask him about it. He would smile beautifully before changing the goddamn subject. Sometimes he would refer to it as history in casual conversations, never truly elaborating. It was strange at first, but it became our rhythm, some sort of untold secret. So I ignored whatever was in that desk, until that hammer drove it open.
So we broke into Eric's desk after Eric had been gone for 5 days to finally figure out what was in
I read the notebooks on the train. His handwriting traced out the contours of the page, curving with the once wet paper in a way that made it seem like he had summoned the words from the sheets themselves. It was organized like an encyclopedia, and each entry told the story of another arcane or banal place, object, or person. Here was a record of the families who had lived on a single acre of land in the north of France. There was an oral history of a Turkish city. There were 10 pages on a pitchfork that changed hands during strange moments of history. The text refused to cohere for me, and I wonder why Eric had put it all together.
I thought I saw a figure, but it was just a shadow on a tree. We don't have much of a jump, so I kind of want to stay out of the little valley of the trail and stay up here where I can see.
One of the journals Eric had left was devoted to KESTLEBROOK itself. The town the train delivered me to was not the first KESTLEBROOK, and the maps Eric had drawn in the journal showed me that the name derived from a small valley a few miles away. At the turn of the last century, the Kessler family had struck out from nearby Allenburg because of religious persecution, although Eric's notes were pretty unclear about what that really meant. The family of 8 built their cabin and barn in the spring of 1815. A year later, only 5 remained, and the next winter spared only the matriarch, Eileen Kessler. A trader who had passed through during the summer of 1817 was apparently the last to report seeing her alive.
Oh, we have a house.
The Kessler's barn blew down sometime during the record-setting storms of 1816, but no one knows when the cabin burned. A hunter named John Rambeau entered the clearing in the fall of 1820 to find a rotting foundation and a scorched ruin. There was no sign of Eileen Kessler. He picked through the wreckage and found nothing. No clothing, no possessions, and nothing of value. There was only a clean, burned void in the middle of an empty field. Eric noted that Rambeau's journal, housed in the Hallerine University Library, contained a short account of his journey. The hunter wrote that he felt as if someone was peering at him, somewhere from the surrounding hills, and had the urge to leave as fast as possible. A marginal note from Eric explained that this is the last entry in Rambeau's journal.
Okay, now we go to this light. This is very nice grass, by the way. Nothing in that light. I really want to check out what all these strange things over here are. These strange monuments that appear to be uniform in nature and crystalline in structure. I think I see more of those strange purple vents over there. It's getting darker the further away from that house that I go, and I don't like it. It's getting very, very much darker. There's stone. There are many stones combined.
Nothing in the world is hidden from the sun. When Irene emerged from the shadow of the mountain, the sun knew. When Timuk was dredged from the depths, the sun knew. The sun watched their plotting and waited for the moment when its action would be the most useful. As Timuk crossed out from under the shade of a tree, the sun shouted out into the world. A searing beam pierced the young woman. She fell to the ground dead. Having done the deed that the sea could not, the sun retreated from the sisters. Irene was left to mourn alone.
I think we might be missing a piece of the puzzle, that one light over there that we passed. Because ever since we hit, I guess, out of the woods, the path has been a bit confusing. A bit lost. Either way, we hit that one there, maybe go back to this one, and then go down into the ravine. That one right over there. I know we haven't been at this one yet. Almost seems to be a path over there too. Can't quite tell from here though.
No one settled in the KESTLEBROOK region for 50 years after the last Kessler disappeared. Erwin Pallardine's A History of the Lowland Peoples, written in 1855, has a one-paragraph entry on KESTLEBROOK. It ends with this sentence: "Stories abound of howling and lights in the distance during the night. Not a single soul I spoke to claimed to have traveled into the valley during the past 25 years.
This must have been where the Great Fire was.
The town of KESTLEBROOK was dead when my train pulled into the station. The porter told me I'd best find a room for the night. I explained that I wasn't really there on vacation or business, and that I needed to find my way to the real KESTLEBROOK. I needed to make my way to the secluded glen where I hoped to find Eric. But in retrospect, I knew I should have waited through the night. I was compelled. There was something about the moon, maybe, or in the night air. I was so close. The porter drew a map for me on the back of a brochure in smudged pencil, and he showed me where to turn from the main road onto a dirt road and where to leave the road entirely. I left the streetlights behind me and traveled into the dark.
I suppose that's the story of how we got here. Oh.
Eric's parents died several years before he disappeared. Their home caught fire just as the sun was going down. He told me that the fire engines had passed him as he was walking home. It was only when he rounded the corner that he saw the plume of smoke blotting out the newly risen moon.
That's what the moon should be. And that's the same story of what happened at KESTLEBROOK. Which was the story that Eric had written before he knew anything of KESTLEBROOK or anything else. Guess we follow this line closely. The music changed.
I can't explain what drove me down the path between the trees. I felt like I was haunting that place. I knew that I needed to be there. And I knew that Eric needed me. It seemed to be enough it was in his journals. But for some reason, his mind revolved around KESTLEBROOK. All the answers were there. But as I read the papers, I couldn't figure out the question.
So, we read these papers, and now we're following the information that we gleaned from them in hopes that we will find Eric at the end of it. Who had lost his parents to the very same ritual or happening that happened in KESTLEBROOK so long ago. Perhaps he knew about KESTLEBROOK.
Eric's journal entry for the Raphaelites outlined a sect of traveling monks who began their orders sometime in the latter half of the 16th century. Founder Tranquillo Balbi claimed that he had seen a figure step from a painting, don clothing, and disappear into a crowd. From that moment on, he devoted his life to trying to find these creatures and banish them from the world. Not long after founding this group, Balbi was killed by the Italian state. His last words are quoted in several heretical texts on art from the time period. Fire is the only truth. Fire shows us another world.
So, the witches so long ago were burnt out by someone, or they were trying to burn something else out. And perhaps even Eric or something else tried to burn those dark creatures out from Eric's own house, his parents.
A few nights before he left, he told me that he felt like an anchor. He said that he felt like he was dragging me down. I didn't know what he meant, and all these years later I still don't quite understand. I think I got close to figuring out that night when I walked through the valley. I felt what he said. He was dragging me towards some dark center of the world, and I couldn't stop. Sometimes I thought I could see him standing out there among the trees. When I tried to make out his shape, it was like I was peering into some vast, abyssal shelf.
The mind plays tricks on the eye, although the only glow I can see is from here. Because that's the end of that trail. And the way the shadows land on the trees seems to make figures that act as if they're popping out just from behind the tree. It's a trick of the light, trick of the eye, trick of the mind. Or so that's what we convince ourselves of. Oh my, what is that down there?
Are you asking me if I think KESTLEBROOK is haunted? No. At least not in the way that you mean when you ask me that. It's just that someone has been there, and they've planted a seed. That seed will grow, and that seed is growing, and the fruit will ruin us all.
Rune stones. Remember the patterns on them just in case.
I've been given to understand that the town of KESTLEBROOK had a hell of a time getting started. Stillbirths plagued both the settlers and their work animals. The cultivated fields would spontaneously catch fire. Packs of wild dogs roamed the streets in winter. The historical records suggest that they were driven out of the hills by competing predators, but it does not speculate on what those predators could have been. I wonder who or what changed its mind and allowed these people to catch hold and prosper, like a weed on a cliff.
And there was the weed on the cliff. This just gets stranger and stranger. What about Eric? Are these fragments of a map? Can't tell, but that seems to be an arrow pointing this way. And up. It's getting very dark. Oh, I really don't want to turn around now. Just keep going forward. That noise sounds like it's coming from behind me. So behind us is clear. Oh, these are not good noises. Oh, where's the voice? I need more lanterns. That's a lot of red glow coming from over there.
Eric's notebooks are full of Marginalia. Notes on top of notes to explain how a figurehead was toppled, or to cross-reference a medallion that tore apart a family of French aristocrats. The last few entries are sketches of stones or altars. Numbers pepper their faces. Their surfaces are plotting grids that stretch out beyond them, accounting for the ground and the air between them. Little points of significance in the absence between things.
There's a flashing light
This
there.
doesn't make
Oh
any
shit.
sense. I felt machinery creaking to life. I screamed for him. Everything went dead silent, but I could hear him whispering to me. I can't. I don't. It wasn't like him. The
Change in
silence
the
became a
voice
dull
scared
hum,
the
and I fell
shit out of
towards the
me.
stones. I think I was screaming, but I couldn't hear myself. I'm screaming and no one can hear me. But Eric is whispering and telling me that everything will be okay. And I can hear this horrible gear tick, tick, ticking over me again. I looked down and I couldn't see my hands, my feet, just this terrible nothing in a precipice that I couldn't see over. I pulled myself myself up, pushed against the edge, and I heard it speak out from the storm. I was nothing, it was everything, and with my last bit of strength, I spun away from the voice and the light, and I hoped that I would die.
When this voice started, I did kind of spin away because it was just from the side and it was so crackly and I can't get up there. I want to get up there. But I can't. Everything points to going this way or straight up. Even a hole in a stone. Although nothing here is any material that is even comprehensible.
No, that's the entire story. I promise that's all. When the sun broke over the hollow, I woke up and scrambled back to the road, back into the town, and back to the train. I lost Eric's journals. I think I left him there and that he was glad I did. I don't think there was malice in it. He was caught up in something he didn't understand. No, they never found a body. Nothing like that. No, I haven't been back. No, I won't tell you. Just please don't go there.
Well, give it up for Connor Sherlock and Cameron Kunzelman for Marginalia. It's been Raithe, your player, and I'll see you in the next episode. Toodaloo.